What is up, guys? It's Dan the Man, and today I'm back with round 3 of Chess Zone's July Action Tournament. And going into round 3, I have a score of 1.5 out of 2, where in round 2 we got a very peaceful draw against Christopher Harris, where despite being on the verge of flagging, he managed to maintain his ground and defend well. And we both played at a 97 accuracy, so it was another one of those boring stockfish-like games where we both play perfectly. But much different scenery than the first game. And going into round 3, I'm having a good score, so I'm obviously going to get higher opponents. Going in round 3, I have with a 1.5 out of 2 score. I'm paired against Dhruva Movva. And he's been on the channel several times. So he definitely knows who I am. And we faced each other before. We're familiar. And Dhruva has been gaining a ton of rating. Like, this guy is at his peak right now. Like, he is literally 40 points from being a national master. At the time of the tournament, his rating was 2159. This is the highest I've ever seen Dhruva over the board. Like, when I previously played him on the channel, he was around like 1900, 2000 probably. But he's been attending a lot of tournaments lately and gaining a lot of rating. So he's on a very, very hot streak of gaining more and more ratings. So I knew that this guy was improving really quickly. So, yeah, just going to go ahead and show you this. This game was by far the most interesting game in the tournament. And even though I didn't win this game, I still liked it the most out of all of them because it's so instructive. And you're going to see like an insane endgame ensue. So buckle up, and the beginning part of the game is nothing special, but the ending is where things really get spicy. So, Dhruva has the white pieces, and I have the black pieces. And here he goes with knight f3, the ready opening. I think he's pretty flexible. I don't really think he sticks to one opening. I think he's kind of experimenting with new openings. So he goes knight f3. I go with knight f6. He goes with g3, going into the King's Indian attack. I go with d5, bishop g2, g6. I'm sort of copying him. Castles. Bishop g7, d4, castles, c4 to strike in the center. This is sort of resembling a queen's gambit, but here I don't really take because it's not really signature of the gambit. It's not like it's past that stage, and apparently we're in something called the pseudo-Catalan, which I didn't know. So I don't really take the pawn. I do it a few moves later. So here I sort of play a Slav in a way. I play c6. And now the table base is saying that we've transposed into the Neo-Grunfeld defense, which, of course, I did not know. I just played a natural-looking move. I didn't know we actually, switched openings. So after c6, here Dhruva plays a4, just gaining some queenside space here. I go with rook e8. A lot of moves are playable here. This wasn't the best, but it's not horrible. It's just one of the many moves. That has a slight inaccuracy. So here he goes with bishop to f4. I go with knight b to d7, just developing. I could have put the knight on a6 practically. I could have played h6 to prevent any sort of bishop g5 shenanigans. So, I mean, it's a very playable position. It's very positional. He goes with knight b to d2. Here I take the pawn on c4. I can only keep the tension for so long, right? I'm not really good with these closed positions. So I try to open the board in a reasonable manner. So here I play a d takes c4. Not the greatest move, but it's not a blunder. White already has like a 0.6 advantage, but it's negligible. So d takes c4 on the board. Here Dhruva takes back with 56 minutes on the clock. And here my idea was to play knight d5, attack the bishop, and just start to open some files of the center. So here I had 57 minutes. Here he played the move bishop to d2 to preserve the bishop pair, of course. Here I go with c5, which the engine isn't a fan of. It already gives white a +1 advantage. But here I'm just trying to open the center as quickly as possible so the game is more interesting, because I don't really like these maneuvering games where everything's closed. I want things to open up, personally. So here I go with c5, and the reason white's better is because they can attack my knight with e4. And I saw this, I'm like, okay, well, sure, you can attack my knight, but, like, I'm just going to go here, and I still felt like I was fine here. Yeah, the advantage is in white's favor because they have a bit more queenside space, but it's not like I'm getting, super cramped or anything. So it's in practice, it's fine. So knight 5 to b6 is what I played here. Dhruva should apparently go knight a3, which seemingly hangs the pawn on d4, so that didn't look human. But he played the human move, which is to take the knight. I take back, and I wasn't worried about this being captured because I would go knight c4 and hit the bishop and hit the pawn on b2. So I would win my pawn back, basically, which he didn't take on c5. And here he played the move bishop to c3, just defending the center a bit. And here I'm pretty much obligated to take because now the b pawn is blocked by that bishop. So I go ahead and trade in the center. He takes with the knight. And here I play the move bishop to d7. Again, not the greatest move. White already has a slight advantage again because they have more space, and Engine's suggesting to play this e5 move, which would open the bishop attack on b7. But yeah, I'm totally fine in practice, like to a human. So Engine's being a bit picky, so bishop d7. Here he goes with a5. I go with knight c4, and if he kicks me away again, I was thinking maybe to go here, and then maybe knight c6, or maybe knight d6. And that's what happens. He goes b3, Dhruva. And here we each had about 50 minutes on the clock. So after b3, I went knight d6. I didn't really want to go knight e5 because that would allow him to go f4 and gain more space, so I didn't feel like that was the right move, but I guess it's fine. So here I go with knight d6, and my idea is to maybe try to play knight b5 and force more trades and just open the board up more. So here he plays rook e1, and my idea was knight b5 just to offer some more trades, yeah, just try to go into an endgame. So here he takes, I take back. He trades bishops, and here I think for a little bit about whether to take back on g7 or trade the queens first and then take back. Both are totally acceptable, but considering Dhruva's rating, I kind of wanted to go into an endgame where I'd have more drawing chances because I knew this guy was a very formidable opponent. So after bishop takes g7, after maybe a couple minutes of thought, I decide to trade the queens off. Both are pretty much identically good. So here I play queen takes d1, he takes with the a-rook, I take the bishop back, and we emerge into this endgame where it's totally drawn. And this, yeah, and I told you, like, this middle game part wasn't really too exciting. White had a little bit of a space advantage, but they didn't play it in the most proper way. And we get into the drawn endgame. But trust me, the best part of this game comes at the very end, so don't click out of the video just yet. Stick around. So it's going to come up very soon. So king takes g7. He goes with e5, attacking the pawn on b7. I didn't really want to go bishop c6 because that would isolate my pawns. I didn't feel like that was a great move. So here I go with rook on a to b8 to defend that way. And also, my bishop's kind of controlling d7, so that way the rook can't really invade. So, again, totally drawn. Here he goes with e6. He's trying to activate the rook on e1 and trying to sever up my pawn structure. So here I go with f5. Declining the trade and also gaining some space of my own. Maybe my king will go through f6 at some point. So here he goes with rook c1, trying to activate his rook on c7. And here I go with b6. And I'm just sort of confronting the tension on the queen side. Asking the pawn what it's going to do, if it's going to trade or if he's going to defend the pawn. Here he goes with rook c7 anyway. And my idea was that after rook c7, I just go a6, and the reason I pushed is so I would not only confront the rook, but also I would, if I went a6 first, then rook c7, I kind of didn't like playing a6 first, so I went here, because maybe the pawn would take and we would go down a different line, but anyway, a6. Here he goes with b4, so he chose to defend the pawn rather than trade and open the rook. So here I decide to take. B takes a5, and you might wonder, like, how is this going to be a chaotic endgame? It looks very peaceful. You guys are going to agree to a draw in, like, 10 moves or so. Well, that's not the case. This game goes on for, like, let me see, look at my notation. This game goes on for another 28 moves, so we're basically at the halfway point. So here I go with rook b to c8, just offering to challenge the rook on the c file. Maybe I was thinking he'd go here to defend and reinforce. But here he goes with rook b7 after some time. And here he was a little bit down on time. He had around 33 minutes, and I had 42 minutes. And after rook b7, again, I'm trying to think of a good plan here. Like in the Christopher Harris game, it was a drawn endgame, but it was kind of hard for both of us to make progress. So I was sort of thinking about what the best plan for me to do was. Maybe to bring the king to f. In the blitz game, I would bring the king to f6, or maybe play like rook c2 or something like that. Here I decided to go with rook c5, maybe to attack this pawn at some point if my bishop moves, so just putting some pressure. So here he goes with rook b6, which apparently is a mistake, but it's only like a -1 advantage. And the reason it's a mistake is I didn't think this was a mistake. Apparently I should double, which I do. And here I'm actually going to turn off the engine. And because this is like one of the highlights of the game. Here Dhruva plays the move bishop to b7. And this move is a blunder. But it's a blunder for an absolutely absurd continuation. And the reason I turned the engine off is I'm inviting you guys to pause the video and try to see what I missed in the game. This tactic that's going to unfold is so absurdly beautiful. It's just ridiculous. So this is why I'm turning the engine off. I don't want to spoil the fun. I didn't even plug in the line because I didn't want you guys to see that either. So again, try to think about what to do. And if you're back, check to see if you're right. So the way that this is a blunder is that black should play the move rook to c1. This is the only move to win for black. And the point is, well, it just looks like you're offering a rook trade, right? Like there's nothing going on here. And let's go down to sample line. If bishop takes c8, rook takes rook, king g2, you probably looked at this in your analysis if you were considering rook c1. But then like you stop and like what do you do next? Like this just looks like a normal position. Next move is not that hard to see. Bishop to f1 check. Okay, fine. The king can't go backwards because bishop h3 would be a mate. So what about king f3? So king f3, it looks like, nothing's happening. Like the king got out of the checks, and it looks like white's going to win the pawn on a6, right? It looks very, very, how is this a tactic? Well, next move for you is rook to c1. And that might look like you're just hitting the bishop. Why can't the bishop just take this pawn? If the bishop takes the pawn, rook c3 check, and somehow, by a sheer miracle, white's in a mating net. This is ridiculous. You play rook c1 to not only hit the bishop, but to threaten a mating net with rook c3. This is absolutely bananas. You go rook c1, gaining tempo on the bishop. Like, the best move for white is to not even save the bishop, just to try to, like, get out of the mating net with somehow. But I'm playing the human moves. The human moves to, like, take the pawn, right? So rook c3 check, king to f4, and here there are two winning moves, but it really transposes into one. Here you can, let's pretend you take the bishop here, and rook takes. Here, the mating net concludes with king to f6, and white is totally busted. Like, the king is literally in a mating net. There's no checks for white, and there's no way to get out of it. If they try h4 to defend g5, you go h6, and the game's over. Like, you can pre-move g5 here. Like, that is absurd, that move continuation. I'm going to turn on the engine. Like, let's just go through it here. Let's fast forward. So rook c1, rook c1, bishop takes, rook takes, king g2, bishop f1, king f3, rook c1. I mean, there were other winning moves, but this one is by far the best. Rook c1 to gain tempo on the bishop and hit and threaten mate. Bishop takes, check. King f4. King f6 first is faster, but I wanted to show the point after taking. Here, king f6. The cage has been locked. The key is nowhere to be found. h4, h6, and yeah, the game is just over. Like, holy moly. That would have been absurd if I had found that. Like, it doesn't look like a blunder. Like, you don't sense that's a blunder. Like, you don't see the eval. So, if someone didn't tell you, find a tactic, you just shrug at this move and like, okay, it's, attacking the rook, hitting the pawn. But if someone were to tell you to find a tactic, then you'd start considering rook c1. But that wasn't the case, obviously. So, of course, I missed this beautiful, beautiful resource. And I go with rook b8, and I don't see this. My idea was to just, pin the bishop to the rook, right? And maybe trade everything off. So here, after rook b8, Dhruva goes with rook a1. I think we both missed this. King f6. Here he goes h4. I go with rook e5 to maybe attack the pawn on e6. He plays bishop takes a6. Rook takes b6. A takes b6. I trade everything off. And here, I realize I'm down a pawn, but the e6 pawn isn't going anywhere, so there's no rush to take it. In fact, if you take it, you lose. So first I go with rook b5 to get behind the b pawn. Here he goes with king f1, and this is just a drawn rook endgame. Like, all right, y'all are going to draw, right? Well, not quite. I'm actually going to lose this game. It might be surprising that I lose this game, but yeah, there's another insane plot twist coming up here. So, king f1, I go with rook b2, not really necessary, I just wanted to stop the king from infiltrating further. King e1, here I take because b7 isn't a problem because my rook's stopping the pawn from behind. He plays b7 anyway. I go king d7, he goes rook a7, threatening to queen, of course. So here I have to get out of the line of fire. Here I go with king c7. This should not be dubbed a mistake. It's totally fine. Here I was wondering at first if I should go king c6 to try to win the pawn that way. I was considering where I should have my king placed once the promotion happens and he takes. So here with king c6, the line would go queen, rook takes e7, h5 I was looking at. I was worried about the rook coming back here to harass my pawn, and I'm like, okay, if the king's here, like, I can't go rook b6 because my king's in the way, but I missed that in my mind, that I can go check, and if need be, go rook e6, and be fine that way. So I didn't really want my king on c6, so that's why I played king c7, because after he promoted, at least I would have my king on b8, and if after rook takes e7, I was thinking h5 here. Yeah, h5 here is now a massive problem because, I was worried about rook e6 happening, and yeah, you can't defend your pawns anymore. So you can't play a natural move like that. So you do actually have to be quite careful what you do here. But this isn't the exciting part, because I don't blunder with h5. Here I go with rook b7, and my gut was telling me that this was a drawn king and pawn endgame, and it might look very elementary to you, like, king and 3 versus king and 3. How is this going to be anything worth watching? Well, it's going to get exciting. This is very insane endgame. So after we trade rooks, Dhruva doesn't really have anything better to do. So King takes b7, and now our kings are going to try to get closer to the pawns. So here he goes with king e2, king c6, king at e3, and his idea is to just bring the king down here and win my pawns. Now here there are two, this is an insane concept. You would think the move king d5 is what you'd play. Like, why not bring the king closer to the action, right? Why not bring the king up and trying to oppose the white king? This move loses for black. The correct move is either to play king c5 or king d6. And this is absurd stuff, again. So the point is, you waste a move. If white goes king f4, you go king d5 now. And you have to make this white's move. Because after white seemingly is marching down to win your pawns, you don't follow them. You go king e4, and you're trying to win white's pawns from up here. And if they continue along their path, king h6, king f3, king takes pawn, king takes, king takes, king takes, h5, f4, h6, f3, h7, f2, queen, queen. When the dust settles, it's queen versus queen, easy draw. But this isn't the exciting part. Let's say instead of king g5 here, let's say they play h5, trying to sever your pawns up. You can't take because they would let you take on f7. So here the drawing move, you have to be really careful as black, is king e6, and the really easy draw is if they take this, then you take back, and it's white's trying to play for a win, so white goes here, trying to win your pawns. And you'd think king f7's correct, but king f7's not correct because white goes here, and you're in big trouble. So you can't go there. So you have to play this move, and it's now a draw because white takes back, and this is just a draw. Like, I'm not going to show it extensively. You're just going to have to take my word for it. So yeah, you have to basically, the concept here is you triangulate, and you have to waste a move for black. So you might wonder, like, king f4, what happens if you try to go towards the white pawns again, right? Because we saw if white goes king g5, king e4, we've already seen this line. But here, h5 wins for white. And because my king's one square further. This position is a draw with my king on d5, but this position's a win for white because my king is one square further away. And the line would go something like king d3, I'm trying to, get closer to the pawns, h takes, king g5, king e2, here, f4, the key move. You don't go here. You have to go f4 here. King f3, king takes, king takes, king takes. And this is just a losing endgame. You're behind the pawn. So, absolutely insane stuff. That your king being one square apart makes or breaks the game. Absolutely phenomenal. So, just wanted to show that. And if you think you want to go h6 here, thinking that you're preventing the king from infiltrating, well, think again, because they go h5. This is a constant threat for black. And he's just going to destroy your pawns, and you're going to lose. So, yeah. Insane stuff. So, after king f4, I don't go here. My idea was, just to stop the king from invading, right? To meet all these moves by bringing my king backwards. And I thought, this is still drawing. Like, if white goes here, then I go king g7, and life's easy. Like, this is what I was sort of thinking. But here, white plays h5. Dhruva plays h5. And here is where I started to worry that this was losing. I should have been worried a little bit earlier. King f7. I was thinking about 3 moves here. I was thinking about g takes h5, but that just looked horrendous because king g5 and, all your pawns are falling apart. I was also thinking about this tricky move, f4, trying to maybe double the pawns. And let's say white takes by mistake. This is now drawn. I was trying to evaluate this. G takes f4, here, king f7, and like white's pawns are doubled, you're just going to go ahead and eat them up, right? But the problem with that is that white's not going to take that. White's going to go here. And if you try to play f takes g3, thinking that they're going to take this, and you're going to stalemate yourself, they're not, because after this, white has opposition, and this is just an elementary winning endgame. So f4 would have been a nice try on my end, but yeah, I just wouldn't have cut it. Also, white can play g4, which is why I didn't play f4. I thought, white could play that. So I eventually go with king f7, but not like anything mattered. So here it goes king h7. I take on h5. And like maybe I can go f4 and try to decoy the pawn, but it's a hopeless cause because king h6, king e6, king takes h5. I go with king d5. I didn't want to get hit with f4 check. So here it goes with g4. I can't really take because that would be an easy winning endgame. So I go with king e4. But this is still losing because he goes g5, king f3, g6, f4. And here, king g5, very nice move. I can't take on f2 because he would take on f4. And in this position, I resign the game against Dhruva Movva. Wow, like this was quite the game. If we look at the accuracy here, he had an 88.5 and I had an 83.2. So that one moment where I could have been winning with rook c1, man, that's just so beautiful. I never would have found that move, and I'm not really upset that I missed it, but at the same time, like, you had a chance to win, so I mean, kinda. But yeah, this was just a crazy game in the ending. I made a not so obvious mistake in the pawn end game. It was very complicated, even though it didn't seem like that. So we lose the game against Dhruva. This was like a 2.5 hour game, so like my mind was fried. And the next game was starting very soon. So I wasn't really in the best mental state, and we go with 1.5 out of 3, which isn't horrible, because maybe we'd win the last game and end up with 2.5, so we're going to have to see about that. But I'm just saying, like, this game was truly bananas, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you liked this video, let me know in the comments. And yeah, have a great rest of your day or night. Bye.